Tonight it's time for a full shop tour. In my house we have a 3-car garage, and I have one bay of that is dedicated to my shop. The other 2 bays are for parking cars, Christmas decorations. Right now we're also getting ready for a kitchen remodel. Appliances and other things that we're staging for the kitchen. My dedicated shop space here is about 11 feet by 20 feet. I know that many of you with small shops are also working in confined spaces like a single car garage or in a basement or a shed or something. As much as we'd like to, most of us don't have a massive shop to store everything in. So we have to work with the space that we have. In my shop I have it laid out so I have certain areas dedicated to certain processes that I'm gonna do. We're gonna start at the far end of the garage and I'll walk around the entire shop and show you how I have it laid out. Hopefully give you some ideas for your shop. Down at this end of the shop I have my miter station. Now this is a design that I came up with because I wanted to use my 12-inch sliding compound miter saw as close to the wall as possible, but still have some dust collection and still be able to have a miter station with it. So this is designed around that. It has plenty of storage underneath, which I use to keep things for my miter saw, for my joiner, which is over here as well, my table saw, my drill press. This is the main storage area for all of the accessories that I need for those tools. I don't normally have a dust collector hooked up to my miter station, and that's because I have a shop vac underneath that has localized dust collection directly behind where the saw is. This is pretty effective at getting most of the dust. It decreases the cloud that you normally get when you cut something on a miter saw. It keeps that down to a very minimum. However, I do have the expansion capability when I put in ducting eventually to hook this up to a dust collector. The miter station is designed so that there's storage on this side, and then on the other side I have open shelves where I can put my cutoffs. That is 28 inches deep, and it's great because I can take long boards and I can slide them in there and they don't block the aisle. They stay out of the way, but I can still see what I have. Above this I have one of my lumber storage racks. I also found that I can use this area to store clamps underneath, which is awesome because then I can use this space that I normally wouldn't have anything in. I actually decided to mount my lights in this area to my lumber storage rack because that puts them directly over the work areas where I'm going to be working. At this end of the miter station I have my sharpening area, and this is definitely a work in progress still. I still need to build some things around this to be able to store things much more efficiently. I have my WorkSharp 3000 right here that I can use to sharpen all my tools, and behind here is where I keep all of the extra plates and sandpaper and everything. And again, because this is so deep, I have storage behind it. After that, I have my router table. This is one that I built in high school that has been very useful, and I've since upgraded and modified things to make it more efficient. Let me show you the coolest thing about this router table. Let's say I want to change a bit or adjust the height of something. All I do is grab this wing nut on the side and loosen it, and I can lift up the entire top. I lock it in place, and now I can adjust this at eye level instead of having to pray to the router god down on my knees, adjusting the height of it. So this makes it very handy. It's easier on your back, and it's a really fun feature. When you're done making your adjustments and measurements, just undo your wing nut and slide it back down, and you're ready to go. On the wall I have my storage rack for my router bits, and these are removable, so if I want to go through and look at something up closer or measure something, or if I just want to have access, then I can pull these out whenever I need to and slide them right back in. Any of the router equipment that I need, I either keep it above here on this rack or I keep it down below in the cabinet underneath. I also have a lot of exotic wood offcuts that I store in this area as well. Right next to my router table I have my flip top tool stand, which has my sander on top and the planer on the bottom. This is really important because I definitely use the sander more than I do the planer, but when you need to use the planer, it's nice to be able to just pull it out and it's ready to go. In this area of my shop I also have my breaker box, which I need to have access to. Now the next part of my shop is where I've made probably the biggest upgrade to the storage. This is my workbench, and if you've seen the previous shop tour, you'll remember that this in the past was a big white wall. But I've seen your comments, I've watched some videos, and I decided to make this into a French cleat wall. This makes it very versatile, so I can do whatever I want and put whatever I want on this wall. So thank you for your comments and ideas on that. As you can see, there's still a lot of open space up here. So there's a lot of things that I still want to build, a lot of tool holders that I'm still designing and coming up with ideas on. This is my storage workbench. It's not a traditional woodworking workbench. I still have plans to build one of those. So underneath I have my drawers on both sides. That's where I store a lot of my workbench odds and ends that I need to have access to regularly. In the center section I have adjustable cubbies where I can put hand tools. And it's great because whenever I get something that doesn't fit in there, I just move some things around and I can usually fit things in. Also underneath here, I have a power strip. This is where I get most of my power for any of my hand tools on my workbench. It's better to have it underneath your workbench than on top because then you don't have the cords coming down across, hanging over all of your work. At this end of the shop, I have my drill caddy, which has my drills and my battery chargers. That's also where I have my sound system. That consists of a Chromecast audio device and a cheap car amplifier, which runs the speakers. And sadly, even though I do have the sign in my shop, there actually is not an airplane hanger outside that door. In this corner, I also have my small parts bins. This is just a very simple storage rack that has all of my parts in there. I have all my screws, my nails, odds and ends, hardware. It's really handy in this location because it's close to my workbench, but it's also behind a door in an area where I wouldn't normally put a lot of things. You may also notice my door frame here. This was something that I did just for fun to have some cool element in my shop. A dovetail door frame just looks cool. Above that, you may notice I have a fish up there, and that fish cutting board was my first project in 7th grade woodshop. So that's kind of like my dollar on the wall, you know, of how it all started. This door goes to my back deck in my backyard. So when I need to, I can open this door and I can open the garage in the front and I can get airflow going through, or if I'm cleaning things out, I can blow dust out. In this corner, I have stored my temporary workbenches, which I've actually had a lot of questions on in my past videos. These things are awesome, but they're really hard to find right now. So I'm currently working on a design to be able to build this out of plywood. This is definitely the ugliest part of my shop, mainly because of this massive water heater and furnace there, which are necessary, but they don't look good. I do have plans to build something to enclose this a little bit better so that I can keep the dust off it, but also so I can use those spaces. Right here I have my scroll saw, which was actually a gift from my grandfather when he got to a point where he couldn't do woodworking anymore. This is actually a really nice Hegner scroll saw, which for a long time was actually the nicest tool in my shop. Behind my scroll saw, I have my dowel storage area. Now, I used to have this in a big bucket, just in the corner. It took up a lot of space, and there's always the short ones that you can't find at the bottom. So I came up with this idea to store these with 3 different lengths of racks with runners going across it to hold them in. And this has been awesome because I can see all of them, they don't fall out, and they're up against the wall and out of the way. In this corner, I also have my air compressor, which is hooked up and plumbed into some lines going throughout the shop. This is a 30-gallon Husky compressor, and I mainly use it to blow off the dust in my shop, to blow the dust off of projects. I use it when I'm painting with my HVLP spray gun. It's much easier to have an air hose like this that you can just plug into the wall in any location you need to be able to blow off or clean things out. One of the hard things about having a garage shop is that usually it has to be used for other things as well. So on this side of the shop, I have extra pantry storage. This makes it so there's a part of the shop where I don't actually have use of a wall. If I was in a dedicated shop that was 11 feet by 20 feet, I would have a wall here that I could use to put tools along. I'm not able to have that here because of the access needed to get to the rest of the garage. But it's forced me to get creative at how I store things and use the shop in the space that I have. Now in this corner of the shop, I have my bandsaw, which is also on wheels, so I can pull out and wheel around if I need to. Next to that, I have my mortiser and my portable shop vac. This is in contrast to the other shop vac I have under my miter station. That one I keep connected because the hose is actually going through the miter station itself. But this shop vac, I can wheel it around so I can hook it up to my sander, I can hook it up to my router, I can hook it up to whatever hand tools I'm using. Up on top is my mortiser, which is just a cool tool because it drills square holes. I mean, how awesome is that? Because of the way a mortiser works, you have to put a lot of torque on it to be able to press down those corners into the square holes. So I made sure to build a real sturdy stand to hold that in place. Moving further down the line, I have my biggest tool upgrade for the year, which was this saw stop. This is an awesome table saw. I have really enjoyed using it. I did a video on if it's worth paying the extra money for it. Because of the size of my shop, I actually had to cut off the end of this table so it would fit and I wouldn't block my aisle. Next to the table saw, I have my drill press, and this is something that I wiggle around and I'll tweak it when I need to be able to get a longer board in there, or if I need to lower something down, because It's kind of tight, but it works having it right here. This is just a cheap Harbor Freight dust collector, but it does a decent job of getting some good suction on the table saw and on the joiner. I also built a partition wall here so that I have more wall storage space for things like clamps and my router sled. For those wondering what I do for an outfeed table, I have a roller stand that I store right underneath the drill press here. Finally, as we make the complete circle coming around my shop, I have my joiner at this end. Now this is stored in this location, and I might keep it here if I'm doing a short board, but usually what I will do is I will lift it up on the mobile base here, and I'll move it so that I can run my boards straight through this way. And when I do that, I can run 10-foot or 12-foot long boards through this area. Both the table saw and the joiner are hooked up to the dust collection system. Now over here, along the edge of my 2-car bay, I've been able to squeeze in a little section where I can have my plywood stored underneath, and I can have more lumber rack storage up above. This is on the back of the partition wall in my shop where I have my clamps stored. This design makes it so I can swing the plywood out from the wall when I need to get it, pull it out, and then slide it back in. It's really easy, it's super simple, and I'm using this space much more efficiently now. That concludes our tour of the Evening Woodworker's shop today. If you have ideas of other things that I should be doing or things that I could do to make my shop more efficient, let me know in the comments. If there's an idea here that you saw that you hadn't thought of before, let me know about that too. I would love to hear it. In the description, I have links for all of the videos of the builds of these various parts of my shop. I also have plans for many of them that you can get on my website. If you want to know what I'm working on in my shop or what I'm going to build next, make sure to hit the subscribe button and the little bell so that you can be notified whenever I post a new video. Now go build something in your shop, and we'll see you next time.